If you've seen the news lately, you will know that I've been crowned Australia's fastest cleaner. So I'm going to be talking about that whole experience today, the build up to it, the event itself, all the press that followed, like being on TV and radio, what that did for the business, and all the rest of it. So let's set the scene. One day I was scrolling through TikTok. This is way before any of it happened. And I saw an ad for the VIVA House of Spills. I'm sure a lot of you would have seen that too, and you probably didn't think much of it. I didn't think much of it at the time. I really didn't even know if it was real, but I've always used VIVA paper towel in my business, and so it really stuck out to me, and it was posted by someone trusted in the community. So I went and entered. They were looking for 6 contestants from around Australia, and it was to compete in what was called the ultimate torture test for cleaners. You had to clean up a lot of spills in a white-style house as quickly as possible to be named Australia's fastest cleaner. What was really cool that stuck out to me as well is that it was being hosted by Maddie J from The Bachelor. So I was like, wow, this is obviously a pretty big thing. They're putting a lot of money and effort into advertising this, so it sounds cool. So I entered, I submitted a photo of myself, a little bio, and I really didn't expect to hear anything back. I just had fun entering, to be honest. I just felt like it was fun to be a part of it in some way, just submitting an entry. Anyway, it was really quick. I heard a reply back within, I think, about 3 days. And they said, congratulations, you've been selected as one of 6 contestants to go to Sydney to compete in the House of Spills contest. And I was just like in disbelief. I've never been selected for anything in my life. So I was like, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me, basically. So yeah, about 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Sydney to compete. And within those 2 weeks from entering to actually competing in the contest, we did a lot of press building up to it. I was on the radio almost every day. I was on the front page of newspapers, and it ended up being pretty good for business. So I was on ABC radio. I was on Triple M radio. I was on, what else? I was on, what's it called? Oh my gosh. I was on 6PR radio twice. I was on a few other stations, and, it got me a bit of business. It didn't get me a ton, not as much as you'd expect for being on radio with millions and millions of listeners, but it did pretty well. And so I was on the front page of a few newspapers. That was cool as well. One of the newspapers that I was in was delivered to all the homes in my local area. So a lot of people saw that. A few people booked me in for cleans. And because I had that authority as being someone who's been on the front page of a newspaper, I was able to charge a lot more than I usually do, because they want someone they can trust. They want someone that's, had that credibility behind them. And so that was pretty good for business. It was also just cool on a personal level to be featured in these press junkets. And, I thought that was going to be the extent of it. Just being in the radio a couple of times and maybe a little piece in a newspaper. But even then, I wasn't expecting to be on the front page of so many newspapers. So that was cool. And then after about 2 weeks from my selection date, they flew me out to Sydney. They put me up in a place in Mascot, which was right next door to the studio we'd be filming at. And I was so nervous. I won't lie. I was extremely nervous. I had no idea what to expect. I was way out of my comfort zone, way out of my depth. And when I got to set that day, I was just trying to hold myself together because I just had no idea what I was in for. When I got there, I was greeted by one of the VIVA PR people. They had this massive breakfast spread. She handed me my drink order that I'd submitted like a week ago. I was like, wow, I feel like a celebrity right now. I'm getting the full 5-star VIP treatment. So I was handed my drink. I sat down with a few of the other contestants. I think it was Arlene and Denise there. And then we got talking. And as soon as Arlene and I got talking, Arlene's from Mrs. Muscle Cleaning, if you didn't know. As soon as we got talking, I was like, wow, she's really cool. I feel like I could be friends with her. And then throughout the day, we kept talking more and more. And I was like, this lady is awesome. I want to be her best friend. And so we ended up becoming really good friends after. And I became good friends with a lot of other people who were at that event. But anyway, We got to set 8 a.m. We were kind of sitting in the green room for about an hour. And then all of us went and did these pre-interviews, which is where they just ask us like who we are, where we're from, why we're there, what we love about cleaning, that sort of thing. And also, there were supposed to be 6 contestants, but there only ended up being 5. Someone had to pull out because there was a big storm, I think in Victoria, and they couldn't make it. So ended up only being 5 of us. And yeah, we did the pre-interviews, just talked about who we are, where we came from, what we're excited for. And then Matty J came in and he had a little chat to all of us. He was really funny. He was really cool. I got to have a bit of one-on-one time with him, and yeah, we had a good chat. And anyway, he did his intro. It was cool to see him doing that behind the scenes and how he prepares for, going on TV and presenting something. So once all that was out of the way, there were these 2 girls who were dressed up in these big blue VIVA jumpsuits, and they were called the VIVA Spill Squad. And they went behind this big white curtain that we had no idea what was on the other side of. They went through that, and we were told that they were the ones creating the mess that we had to clean up. So they ducked behind this big white curtain. We hear a bunch of splashing and sploshing and all kinds of stuff. And then Matty goes in to have a look at the chaos. And then he comes out with this smirky grin on his face. And then I asked him, I was like, so what are we cleaning up behind there? And he just says 2 words and then walks off. He says, human feces. So that was pretty much our first interaction with Matty himself, telling us we'd be cleaning up human feces behind the big white curtain. And at this point, we're all looking at each other like, what are we in for? What have we gotten ourselves into? Anyway, we did the first round of heats, which is where the 5 contestants go in there one by one and do the clean. So this was a longer round. It took me about 9.5 minutes, I think. 3rd, 4th, and 5th got about 11 minutes and 12 minutes, something in that range. Myself and Arlene, we did it in about 9.5 minutes the first round. And so we were selected as the 2 finalists to go head to head. And when we're all going in to clean this, we're like going in one by one. We can't see each other's work. So the person going in first, which I think was Arlene, she would have been, she was really thrown into the deep end straight away because she had no idea what was on the underside. She had no idea, what sort of time was the time to beat. And yeah, when I went in, I think I was 3rd. That was also my first time seeing the set. And it was like a white kitchen, a white dining area, and a white kids area. And there were just soy sauce was spilled everywhere, orange juice, coffee, ice cream, and the bane of my existence, tomato sauce. I cannot even smell it anymore. It just gives me flashbacks to that show. But anyway, first round of heats, Arlene and I did it in about 9.5 minutes. It was like 5 seconds between us. It was very close. And then in the finals, it was a speed round, so it took us about 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And again, there was like 4 seconds the difference between me and Arlene. So she's pretty quick. She's an absolute gun. But yeah, I did my clean in the finals. I used the VIVA paper towel to soak up all the spills. And then I ran over to the buzzer, pressed it, and got 2 minutes 14, I'm pretty sure. And then Matty congratulated me, handed me the check, and that was it. Within 4 hours of me arriving at set, or 5 hours, I had been crowned Australia's fastest cleaner. So we did the post-press interviews, or the post-show interview. I talked about why I was happy I won. I looked pretty exhausted in that interview. Looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I was knackered because I woke up at like 5 a.m. Sydney time, which would have been 2 a.m. back home in Perth. And anyway, so we did the interviews afterwards. They ended up on TV later that night, which was a big surprise. So, yeah, it was really cool. We shot some like B-roll content, stuff that's going to be used in Viva's TV ads, I'm guessing. And it was just a lot of fun. Everyone was really nice. I got to meet Matty J's wife as well, Laura Byrne. She was awesome. Then we had a massive catering spread, like a big buffet style thing that we all chowed down on. I met Charlotte from Care Cleaning. I met Scott and Gabby from Kings. I was most excited to meet them, to be honest, because I've been friends with them on Instagram for a long time and we never met. So that was a really cool thing about the event, was meeting so many different people from TikTok and Instagram and within the industry that, we'd probably never meet otherwise, just because we're all doing our own thing. We're all in different parts of the world, and we were all brought into this one place and we got to congregate and talk to each other, and it was really cool. So yeah, I met Scott and Gabby from Kings, Charlotte from Care Cleaning, Kate and Jack from Clean Like a Pro, obviously Arlene from Mrs. Muscle, and a few others. So really, really fun day. Honestly, the highlight for me was meeting all these cool people who I'd known on Instagram and TikTok for so long. But anyway, we finished up. We did a couple of photo shoots and shot some more content, which I'm sure VIVA will use in their advertising down the track. And then we all went out for a nice dinner together, which was awesome. We all went out and I shouted everyone dinner because obviously I won, and you got to do what's appropriate and courteous. So I took Arlene, the Kings guys, and Megan from, I think, Bayside Bio Cleaning. We all went out to dinner. Unfortunately, a lot of other people flew home that same day, so we couldn't go out for one big dinner with everyone. But yeah, we went there and debriefed and had a good chat. And then I checked into my next hotel, and when I got to my other hotel, I turned on the TV, and on Channel 9, I saw myself. And this was my first time seeing myself on TV. I didn't even realize I was going to be on TV that night. So I was on Channel 9 News. They announced to Australia that I was Australia's fastest cleaner. And that was my first time seeing myself on TV. And it was a really strange, out-of-body experience. I can't really describe it, but after watching something for so long, after watching the news for so long and then seeing yourself on it, it's like the strangest experience. But that being said, right after it happened, I didn't feel any different. I just went back to normal life. And it was the same with all the other TV stuff I did, which we'll get into as well. But my first time on TV was Channel 9 News. They played some snippets from the event and announced that I was the fastest cleaner. So that was really cool. We got some bookings from that for our cleaning business back home, just from people who saw it on TV. And again, not as many as you'd think. When you consider that there's potentially 2 million people seeing this thing, it only translated to about 3 bookings, which it's good. But if you were paying for that sort of press, you'd be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that sort of press, and the ROI would not be very good. And then after that, I spent a few more days in Sydney because I thought I may as well make a bit of a holiday out of it. And then I went back home to Perth. And when I got back home to Perth, this is when things really started to change for me. So I thought everything was going to be kind of over at that point. I thought things would subside. I thought the hype would wear off pretty quickly. But no, we were just getting started. So as soon as I get home, I am inundated with radio requests. So I went and did all of those. I was in studio at Hit FM, Triple M. I did 6PR, ABC Radio, all these things. And it just kept going and going. I was in Daily Mail. I was in I think 30 different blog and news websites. And then the big stuff started to come. So I was at home. I think this was about possibly a week after the event, after we'd wrapped up that show. And I got a call from the PR manager for VIVA. And she goes, "Hey, Jason, the project wants you on." And I'm like, "The project, like Channel 10? That project?" And she goes, yeah. And when she's telling me this, it's about 10 a.m. Sorry, it's about 8 a.m. in the morning. And it's on a Thursday. And I'm thinking that they're going to get me in for tomorrow, which is Friday, because that would make sense. I used to think the project was on Friday. And she's like, "Yeah, okay, well, I'll have a call with the producer and get back to you. And then anyway, about 20 minutes pass. PR manager calls me back. She's like, they want you on tonight. And I'm like, okay, how's that going to work? So, it's early in the morning right now. And within 4 hours of that phone call, of me finding out that the project wants me, I had a whole camera crew come to my apartment, turn my apartment into a makeshift studio for the day, wire me up, give me an earpiece, all the rest of it. And I was then talking to the guys from the project, the guys and the girls from the project. We had like a 20-minute interview. And it was cut down to about 5 minutes. They cut out some really funny stuff, which sucked, but it still ended up being a great segment. But literally from the moment I found out that the project wanted to speak to me actually doing the project interview was like 4 or 5 hours. It's really funny how quick the turnaround is in TV. And so it was on TV that night. It was all pre-recorded. So we recorded it at about 1 p.m. Perth time. And then it would have aired at around 4 p.m. Perth time because it would have been 7 in Sydney. And then obviously we get to see it 3 hours later. So it ended up being really cool. It was really funny. They were really fun to talk to, when they pretty much held my hand through it, because that was my first real me on TV sort of experience, where I wasn't just being shown on TV, but I was actually talking on TV. So that was really cool, and they were really great about it. And life was weird that day because I went out that night and I went to a bar for dinner, and they were playing the project on TV. And so I'm just sitting in this bar, and towards the end of the show, I come on, and I'm like looking around to see if anyone recognized me. No one does. But it was really funny. I was with a friend and we were just cracking up the whole time, because there I am on TV in this bar, and I'm just sitting in the middle of it watching it, and all these other people around me are watching it as well. And some people are laughing about it, making comments about how ridiculous it was, and I'm just sitting there like, I know. So the project was the first big TV experience I had, and that was really cool. Super nerve-wracking. It's in theory, I was like, this will be a breeze. I'll be able to get through it. I've done radio, but as soon as they yell action and I hear them speaking to me in my earpiece, I just felt so nauseous, and I felt like I was going to pass out. It was incredibly nerve-wracking, and I'm surprised I got through it without stumbling or messing up at all. So the funny thing actually was they stuffed up a few times. Even in the intro, when they were introducing themselves, someone stuttered and then they laughed and they're like, okay, let's go again. And so we had to redo the intro, and I had to act like it was the first time I was speaking to them. So that was funny. But then I was also on the Today Show, Weekend Today. And now this was my favorite experience of all of them, because I actually got to go to Nine Studios instead of them coming to me. And yeah, that was a really, really fun experience. So I had to get to Nine Studios at 4 a.m. in the morning. So I woke up at around 3, drove there, got there at 4 a.m. because obviously they're going live in Sydney at 8 a.m., which is 5 a.m. our time. So we got to prepare. I got to get wired up, mic'd up. We got to get into the studio where I'm going to be doing it, and then figure all that stuff out. And I was super nervous for this, but I felt a little bit more confident because I'd already done the project. But the person who was walking me around, Helen, she was really nice. She made me feel at ease. And it was really funny because we were the only 2 people in the whole Channel 9 Studios building. And it was even more fun after, because she took me on a tour of the building. But we'll get to that in a second. So I was taken to this really dark, secluded room, no windows, just fully soundproofed. And there's a little X on the floor with a stool on it, which is where I had to sit. And behind me was a big TV with a view of the Perth city skyline. And in front of me, there was a camera, a TV sort of in the camera, a TV below the camera, and a TV above the camera. The one above the camera just showed myself, showed what I look like. the one below the camera had a live feed of the Today Show. And then the middle one was supposed to have like my slides or just a view of the hosts the whole time so I could look at them and talk to them. And so I was just sitting there watching the Today Show live through these cameras until it was my turn to go on. And then they introduced me. And this time I could actually see them, because when I did the project, I couldn't see the hosts. I could only hear them in my earpiece. But this time I could see the Today Show hosts right in front of me. And so we got talking. And then I had to deliver slides. So there were these pre-made slides that I had to talk a bit about. So I had like 12 talking points. I didn't have a script or anything. I just had talking points. And I was told that my slides would always be available for me to see on one of these screens, because I had 3 screens and I was told one of the screens would always have my slides on them. That was a lie, because I could only see what people on TV could see. So when one of my slides came up, I started talking. I did the first talking point. Cool. Got that out. Second talking point, I started talking about this one. And then as I'm talking about it and about to finish, the slide disappears and it just cuts to my face. So I'm sitting there staring at my face on live TV, not knowing what my next talking point is, praying to God that they just show it again. And I was doing so well in this interview up until this point. And then I took one really long pause after rambling a little bit, hoping they'd put the slide back up. I took one really long pause, and I think they finally realized, like, oh, this guy needs his slides. So they put the slide back up, and I finished it off. I don't think you can really notice in the actual interview, but in the moment, it felt like my whole world was crashing around me. Like, it felt, that 1 second pause I took felt like an eternity for me. Anyway, I got through that. Did a little shout out to VIVA, which they were really happy with. And the whole segment just went really great. And so once my little segment was over, I hopped off the stool and I went to the makeup room. Helen took me over to the makeup room and I got to meet one of the stars of Married at First Sight, which I had never watched. I didn't actually know she was on that show, but I got talking to her in the makeup room, made a couple of jokes like, why didn't I get makeup for my segment? Blah, blah, blah. And she was really cool. She looked pretty nervous as well, to be honest, which is fair. Even if you've been on a TV show before, it's nothing like being on live TV. So she was cool. And then it was really surreal because I saw her in the makeup room. And then when I'm watching the Today Show later, right after my segment, she comes on. And it's like, oh, that was the person I saw in there. So she's on Married at First Sight. She's one of the favorites on that show. I think she's the only person from Perth who was on this season. But yeah, then Helen took me on a big tour around Channel 9 studios. She took me to the newsroom where they deliver the daily news. She took me to the back rooms, like the mission control, where they have hundreds and hundreds of screens and buttons, and that's where all the big stuff happens live. She took me to the news bulletin desk where they've got 3 people that just sit there and listen to police scanners and radio and read newspapers all day looking for the next big story. And she took me to the spot where they delivered the live news bulletin, so I could actually stand in that, see myself in the camera, and look at myself in the spot that I'd seen on TV so many times. That was really cool. And yeah, she took me on a tour, told me about the history of Channel 9, and that was honestly the coolest part for me because she didn't have to do that. I wasn't told I was going to get that experience, but she was just so nice and gracious with her time that she helped me do that. And at this point, we were still like the only 2 people in the whole building. And it's a big building, There's supposed to be hundreds and hundreds of people working there every day. But because we were so early there to do the Today Show, we were pretty much the only people. So by the time I got away, it was about 6 a.m. So I got there at 4 a.m. and I was gone by about 6 or 6:30. And I could breathe a big sigh of relief. So the VIVA PR people called me. They said they were really happy with it. They were like, you smashed it, Jason. Congrats. That was awesome. VIVA said they were over the moon with the segment. And at this point, I could just breathe a big sigh of relief because I did all of my media obligations. I got through it without stuffing up. I didn't swear on live TV. I didn't have a mental breakdown. I didn't pass out. I didn't throw up. So in my books, that was a massive success because I'm someone who gets like terrible anxiety about things like this, and it like keeps me up at night. I cannot sleep the night before something like this. So I got through all of it. I did like 100 different radio interviews, news interviews, TV segments, and I did not stuff up once. I did not screw up at all. The VIVA PR people even told me I was one of the best people at talking on the fly that they'd ever seen. And they said I was really good at thinking quick. So that was really, really cool to hear. That was really encouraging because I was going into that thinking that I was going to be hopeless. And yeah, in the end, it was a really fun experience, completely changed my life, put me all over TV and front page of newspapers, and gave me a whole new level of, I guess, credibility and notoriety in my business, because I'm now that guy who's been on TV. I'm that cleaning guy from TV, and I'm that guy who won that show. So really cool experience. It was pretty good for business. Obviously, we got, maybe 10 bookings out of that whole press run, which if you were paying for it, wouldn't be a good return. But for me, it was free. I only had to volunteer my time, and the credibility that's going to come from that and the momentum that is going to build from all that experience is going to be invaluable. So yeah, really cool experience. That's a little look at the behind the scenes of all that. If you've been watching it unfold from the sidelines, and maybe you've even seen me on TV. So there you go. There's a little look behind that. Really cool seeing behind the scenes. Highlight for me was definitely doing The Project, because I used to watch that show all the time, and then I finally found myself talking to the people and then seeing myself on it that same evening. Really surreal experience. But yeah, back to normal life now, back to cleaning, back to growing the business, and who knows, maybe something else will happen down the track that'll find me on TV again. It's not something I'd say no to, but to be completely honest, it's not something I'm going to go out of my way to look for, because it's very nerve-wracking doing that stuff, and I don't think I'm really cut out for it. But hey, I wouldn't say no to it if a cool, fun opportunity came my way again. So yeah, just back to the usual schedule, growing the business out here in Perth. Things are going great. Really happy with the way we're heading, and Stacey is doing really well. She's really happy in her role now, and things just seem to be falling into place. And this was a really cool thing that I could have done, that I couldn't have done if it weren't for the fact that my business was in the right place and under management, because, I was able to take a whole week off and just unwind and do all of this stuff while Stacey took care of everything. So that's another reason why you've got to get your business under management. You've got to get yourself a team, because if you want to go and do things like this, and if cool opportunities come your way, you need to be able to separate yourself and go and do these things, because I wouldn't have been able to if it weren't for my team, and I would have missed out on the opportunity of a lifetime. So business is an awesome thing. Business has changed my life, given me a lot of amazing opportunities that I'm really grateful for. It's a blessing, honestly. Being in business is a blessing, and it's not something that we should take for granted. So you may be doing it tough at the moment. Business may not be going so well for you, but just remember that the light at the end of the tunnel, it may seem far away, but it's there. If you just do the right things, if you're persistent enough and consistent enough, and you follow the formula, get your systems down, get the right people, just keep your head down and keep doing good work, you are going to get to that light. And once you get there, you're going to look back and you're going to say, all that hardship I went through, all those struggles, it was all necessary, and it's all led me to this moment right now where I feel autonomous and free and happy. So that was the recap of everything that happened. Really fun experience. Really grateful to everyone who followed me along that and congratulated me and supported me through that. So yeah, that was a cool little episode I know a lot of people were asking for, and I guess I'll see you in the next episode where I'll be talking about something boring and business related this time, because I doubt I'll be on TV again in the next week and have anything interesting to talk about. So thanks for joining me again. This is a pretty long one. I hope you don't mind a long episode. Maybe you actually like that. Let me know on Instagram or in the reviews if you want to see more long episodes like this. So thanks for listening again to another episode of Self-Made, and I'll see you again in the next one.